What can you do to improve your writing and build your network as a part of it? As a creative and professional writer, my time post-college graduation was just that, difficult to keep an upward learning curve that honed my craft and connected me with others in the field. So today, join me on a quest to connect writers to the experiences they need with top authors, editors, and publishers ready to share their methods for success. Become a part of a new elevated selection for publishers and debunk the myth that while writing is a solo act, being a writer is not always solitary. Am I right? Hey there, word wizards! Welcome to another excellent episode of Am I Right? I have Damyanti Biswas, if I said that correctly, here today, and she is a force to be reckoned with. I am very excited to continue to watch her future career as she publishes more books. She's got one already out that's fantastic. She's got one coming up soon, which we'll get to that later. But first things first, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Sheridan. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yes. And I feel like we're already a little bit kindred because you find community and helping other writers very important. And I think that's what this show is about. And so for all of the listeners here, this is one to pay attention to because she has a lot of wisdom that she's willing to share. And I think that's going to be really useful to us. So I would love to dive right in and read a little bit about you. Ramyanti's work has been published in Smoke Long Quarterly, Ambit, Broke Review, Griffith Review, among many others in the United States, the UK, and Australia. She has been listed for Best Small Fictions and Bath Novel Awards, and she also serves as one of the editors of the Forge Literary Magazine, which is amazing if you look it up. Indian debut literary crime novel You Beneath Your Skin is an Amazon bestseller, an option for Screen, which I think is amazing. Her next novel, The Blue Bar, is slated for publication in January in 2023 in the USA. And apart from being a novelist, she is an avid reader of true crime, blogger, and an animal lover. And her ambition has always been to live at home with more books than any other item, which I think all of us can support fully. And she continues to work toward that. So, I mean, that's a pretty impressive portfolio already that you have built in a short time. So I definitely think that is worth noting. We wanted to ask first off, what do you like about writing in the mystery thriller genre? What brought you to that genre?
Well, I started the writing life as a short story writer. So I used to write literary short stories. And then I came upon this book called In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And I was honestly just blown away because this was literary writing and it was examining violence from a point of view I had never seen before. And I realized how it is possible for an author to write crime in a way such that, you catch people at either their most vulnerable or their most extreme, and whether it is the victim, the perpetrator, or the
Mm,
investigator. And
mm,
while doing so, you also get to examine the society and kind of expose the contrasts, the evils, the injustices, and kind
mm,
of hold a mirror up to society or to the setting it is in, be it urban or rural. And in the end, like it often doesn't happen in life, but at least in the books, you can bring a measure of justice. The perpetrator is nabbed.
mm.
Whether punished or not is another story, but at least for a while, all is well with the world. So you are able to kind of give that to yourself and
Mm.
also to the reader.
So it
So
sounds
that's how.
very, yeah, very kind of self-soothing, helping with your opinion. I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of uh, issues in society and among governments, and I think that this is a really interesting outlet to use to address that. So that's perfect. And if any of you follow her on social media, she has this picture of her ocean office, which is essentially just sitting outside, writing with the beautiful ocean in front of her. And I wanted to ask, what effect does that have on your writing? Is writing outside in places that inspire you important for you? Can you just pick it up and write anywhere? What is that for you?
I do write outside, but not as often. The
Mm.
professional writer's life doesn't really always allow you to write where you want to. So you can, you might be writing in a hotel room, you might be writing at an airport, you
Mm.
might be writing in a train seat, and uh, as a professional, you just have to get it out of you, and then later you look at what it is you produced. Personally, I think I find sometimes it can be beauty can be distracting. So sitting at a beach, I can be just sitting at the beach, and at the end of the day, that I would have very little written. And in contrast, sometimes I would be sitting at a food court, for example, and there's a lot of buzz and chaos around me. And ironically, that kind of focuses my attention. I'll just put in the earbuds and earphones, and
Mm,
I'll just go, and I would have produced a whole lot more. So
mm.
to me, it doesn't really, I cannot afford to not produce just because I don't have the right setting. If I have
Yeah,
a deadline, I have to write. I don't have the
yeah.
luxury to say, "Oh, sorry, I need my beach office now."
Well, it's a beautiful fairy tale thought, right? But I think it is important to be able to write anywhere. And in fact, we've had multiple guests on the show say that's the number one component of success is just being able to pick it up and write it and get the creativity out of your brain, whether you're in an airport or you're sitting on a sandy beach. So I think you're supporting kind of the normal cause for that. Um, I have noticed that you have been in the position of a mentor in the past for new writers, for aspiring writers, and then also for friends who are in the writing community. And I wanted to say, is there anything that you would be willing to share about those that you worked with that indicated that they were ready for publication?
Uh, Basically, when I used to be part of mentorship programs, I'm still part of one. I do have a mentee.
Wow.
What I look for in a mentee is two things. One is the inability to give up. So they should be like so full of grit, and
Mm,
they should be persevering. So in the face of rejections, in the face of delays, in the face of disappointments, they should not be the sort to give up. So if I need somebody who is already ready to be a professional, because in the professional life there will always be ups and downs, and they should be willing to go with that, roll with the punches. So that's really the most important thing. And second to that is the openness to feedback. So we all put a bit of ourselves into our work, and we can be precious about what we've produced. But if we kind of, just put up the first draft out there, it's not going to be a great work, because that's not how writing works. So if there is no openness to feedback, that becomes difficult. For me, I believe in giving feedback in a way that the person receiving the feedback is excited to go and do the next draft. But
mm,
it does need a certain mentality to kind of be open to that feedback, open to
mm.
be, told, is there another way you can look at this? Here's a suggestion for you to look at. Have you considered this aspect? What are you trying to say here with what you've written? What is
Mm.
the story you want to tell? Somebody who's willing to examine themselves and their own writing, and be willing to answer these questions, without feeling hurt or taking it as a personal attack. So
Right.
those really, for me, are the best qualities. The rest, craft can be taught. And
Hmm.
then, of course, if they have a story to tell. So if they have a story
That's
to
important.
tell, yes, that's of course the very first thing. The story has to attract me. But the qualities in the author are those: perseverance and an openness to feedback.
Oh, I really like how it's your focus is more on, like you said, qualities, on personality traits rather than different certain quirks to their writing because it is a lot of grit. It's a lot of mess, and if you're not prepared for kind of the work that goes into it and the constant, like you said, disappointments that you may face, I think it could be really crushing for you in this industry. And so I mean, take it from her. She knows what she's talking about as a mentor. It's more important to be willing to put in the work than to hold on to your darlings and be scared to let go of, what you've created. And I do think there is another side of that pendulum where people do release things too early and they don't get that feedback that they need to get, which is kind of what people like you are here for, to help them kind of pave that path a little bit clearer. And so between your first book and your second book, has it been easier for you to make that journey on your own to kind of lay your own plot out and feel like it's at a point where it's ready, or do you still rely heavily on others' feedback?
Uh, I think it's a bit of a myth to say that writing is an absolutely lonely journey. Yes, the first draft, when you do it, you do it alone, or at least I do it completely alone.
Mm,
And I'll never show my first draft to anybody, not even my agent. So I will like really do it myself. But there comes a time when you do have to show it to others because, writing is like code. So you have written a code which you have put on the screen or paper, as the case may be. And then you expect somebody to interpret that code inside of their brain to get the same experience that you hope that they will get.
mm,
So all of fiction is an experience. You're trying to convey an experience to your reader. So whether that experience is getting conveyed or not, you're not the best judge of that because it's there in your head in like, you've got the
mm,
entire palace built up, but you don't know
right.
whether what's written, shows some sort of palace over there. So what's happening? So I don't
Yeah.
think feedback ever goes away. I still do have critique partners with whom I exchange manuscripts. I get feedback from my wonderful, wonderful agent, Lucian Diver. She really kind of gets into a manuscript and she can tell you things that work and things that maybe I could tweak. And then I have my fabulous editor, Jessica Trubble, who's like, she's a maverick with plots. So, I'm open mouthed with how she can really turn a story around. Like with the blue bar, she kind of took it and said, okay, take this out, put this back in, take the first one fourth out, put it back
Mm,
in the rest of the three fourth, and voila, like magic.
wow. Wow.
So you do need people, who can look at your work and who know what they're doing. So editors, I think, no writer can claim that they wrote a piece and there was no editing involved and there was no editor. Maybe for some pieces of flash fiction, maybe where it's really really small, but you cannot write an entire novel and not have an editor. So
Mm,
you do have to have an editor at a minimum. And hopefully before that, you've gone through, at least one or two reads through other people.
at
So
least.
yeah, at least, yeah.
Yes. So you're saying that editing is in for the long haul. So if you're a starting writer, get used to that feedback. Get used to seeking those mentors and people you can trust to help increase and improve your manuscript and the flow and the plot because it's not going anywhere. It's still going to be there with book two and book three and beyond.
Yes, maybe with book two and book three, you have more of a confidence that you would be able to finish the novel because when you begin writing, the challenge is to finish the story. Finishing is a
Mm,
huge challenge in the very beginning.
mm,
So by now, I know that if I start a novel, I can finish it. I know that I can get the bones in there.
mm.
But I have now developed very much the humility to know that I cannot do it alone to the best it can be done because my loyalty should always be to the story and the characters and the reader has given their time to me. Time is really really precious these days. They've given me their time and attention and of course money. And the characters are all there. They are real people who exist in their own world, so my loyalty is to them. So if I just
Mm,
mess around and flounder around by myself, I'm not doing justice either to my characters or my readers. And
mm.
that's my entire job description. I need to entertain and, give something, give an experience to the reader. And I need to be true to my characters. And that's who I am. That's why I'm an author. So, yeah,
That's perfect. That's our plaque quote of the episode. Be true to your characters, be true to your readers, and that's who you are. Be true to yourself. That's perfect.
absolutely.
And I think you've kind of already answered our secret sauce question of the episode, which is, what unique or determining traits and tendencies do successful authors tend to have. Is there anything you would add to that? Have you seen anything in your published friends that has shown, I think this has really brought them success?
Well, success is something that is relative, so it means different things
Mm,
to different people.
very
So
true.
I think at the very outset, it's very important to decide what success means to you. Because if you look at success objectively, it comes in three ways, right? One is the approval of your peers, which means like awards and things like that, where they tell you, oh, you're a great writer. Another is you're a bestseller and you've sold like 1 million copies and you're a number one New York Times bestseller for the last 20 years.
Mm,
Or you are also very happy with what you're writing. Like when you start writing, it makes you feel good about it. You feel good about writing the story. You're excited in the morning. You want to wake up in the morning and write the story. So these are the three kinds of successes, right? One
mm,
is to have a personal, another is peer approval, and another is success in terms of, how many copies you sell. And very few, if any at all, authors get all three, because you have the Booker Prize and the Pulitzer Prize winners who don't sell really all that much. You have the bestsellers who are mostly panned by critics saying, okay, this is like, this is not high literature,
mm,
and that sort of thing. And sometimes you can be an author who might be selling 1 million copies, but you're not like happy with what you're writing. Like famously, Arthur Conan Doyle, while writing Sherlock Holmes, tried to kill Sherlock Holmes many times, saying, I don't want to write this anymore. And the audience was like, no, 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 you have to. And then he had to be revived. And Conan Doyle was really annoyed with that. And so you have to define what success looks like to you. So, and then you have to plan accordingly, right? So if
mm,
your approval is very important, then you go with that. If selling many copies is important, you go with that. But at least you have no control over whether you will do the other two, peer approval
mhm,
and bestsellerdom. But at least you know which way you're going and how to handle your disappointments, because there will be many. So I think whatever success is, you have to define what it is for
mm,
you personally, because then what will happen is you will take care of your mental health over the long term.
mm,
And to be truly successful, that's really important, because then you know this is what your goal is and you're working towards it, and you have your plan ready.
yeah.
So yeah.
And success without mental health is just misery anyway, right? So it almost feels as if those two of the three categories can be optional for success, but the one you mentioned with just finding joy in what you're creating, I think that's almost a requirement, a necessity if you're going to keep moving forward with this industry and enjoy who you are and who you're becoming and what you've worked on so hard. I couldn't imagine writing, I have a manuscript that's 90 something thousand words, right? And I can't imagine writing that and hating every word. And I hope that Mr. Arthur Conan Doyle found some joy when he came back with Sherlock Holmes, because I am very grateful to read Sherlock Holmes. But I think that would be miserable. It would be miserable if you were not interested in that. So that was really interesting to have you bring up, because I don't think I've heard that before about him, which is interesting. So one thing that we've kind of been trying to breach lately in the show is the infamous query letter and all of its troubles and curiosities and questions that come with it. And I wanted to get your take on what you think makes a query letter fresh or unique without being a little too out there and a little too abrasive.
Well, first of all, I think we glamorize this whole process a whole lot, like getting an
Mm,
agent and, a publication deal. And life does not end with that. That's just the beginning of the writing life. Let's get that straight, first of all. So, also, this is part of being professional. So, getting an agent is a step in your professional journey. So, writing the query letter is again the first step to begin that professional journey. So what's most important to remember is you're really writing a professional communication and you're looking for a business partner. So your agent
mm,
could be your friend, could be your partner, but really needs to be your business partner. So you are approaching somebody to make some money together. right? At the end of the
Right.
day, if you're not selling the book, then you're not making money and the agent is not making any money. So,
Mm-mm.
this is where art meets commerce. So
Yes.
at the query letter, it's the juncture where art is meeting commerce. So you have to have enough of the art, but you also need to remember that there's the commerce part of it. So
Mm.
I'd suggest do a whole ton of research on the agent, first of all. So the query letter comes later. First,
Mm.
you figure out who it is that you want for your, to
Right.
represent your book. Who's
Who
the
could
sort
be a
of
business
person?
partner in this?
Yes,
Yeah.
who would be the
Yeah.
right business partner? Because you have to analyze your story. You need to know who is looking for it. Where does it sit in the, at the bookshop? Because you have to begin looking at your work of art as a product. And
Mm.
that's a hard thing to do, as I can tell from experience,
I
but it's
believe you.
got to be done. And the sooner you do it, the better. And if you start looking at it like a product, because that's how the agent will look at it, that's how the editor will look at it, and that's how the publisher will look at it, because they have to sell the book, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you, first you kind of figure out who are the agents you want to query, then you figure out what is it about this particular agent, like figure out everything you can on the internet. These days we are very fortunate, a lot of agents are on Twitter or wherever. So you figure
Mm.
out exactly what kind of query letter they want, and in a lot of cases you would be able to really personalize it in terms of, you are looking for this, or this is what you said in your tweet, or you responded to my tweet and said this. So
Mm.
a line of personalization goes a long way. Try
Mm.
not to mess up the agent's name. I know these are very basic, but it happens all the time, because as a mentor, I've seen what the agents face. So sometimes I'll get like 200 pitch letters and I have to choose one mentee. And that's like a real microcosm of what
Mm.
the agent faces on a daily basis. So
Right.
it's not the ego thing. It's not that I would be offended if somebody kind of mispronounces or miswrites my name, but then I know that they are not being professional, they are not paying attention, and that's what's very important throughout the writing process. You need to be professional. So a
Mm.
query letter is a business letter. So you start with the personalization, then you go with the hook, the book, the cook, right? So
Yes.
why this book? This is the hook. Like, why is it that you should stop everything, stop scrolling right now? So that's like the
Mm-hmm.
hook, right? And then the book, which is like the two paragraphs saying what it is, and the conflict, and how, where you want them to reach, like give them enough of an intrigue. And then why now? So why should you be writing this book, and why is this book topical right now, and why are you the best person to write it? So kind of tweak your bio in that way, right? And send it off. And to me, when I started querying, I think more than the query letter, which of course I got a lot of feedback on, I
Mm.
got it through with a lot of published friends, I got agent feedback on it. But what really helped me the most, I think, is the fact that I did a lot of research on the agents I wanted to query. So I took 2 months just to create like an Excel sheet where I had my agents. I had like about 150 agents who I divided into categories A, B, and C. And then,
Mm-hmm.
accordingly, I would go and send two to A, two to B, two to C. So like I had an entire strategy thing going on.
Wow.
So I think that's what's important, because we put in so much effort into writing a book. And I think we need equal amount of effort into writing the query letter and sending it out. So treat it very, how do you say, give it a lot of importance. I see a lot
Mm.
of authors just kind of send out, just dash off query letters like, let's see what sticks. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not very professional, and that's just my subjective opinion. It might work, but I feel if you're going to be an author, if you're going to be published in the industry, and if you want to pursue traditional publication, then you might as well treat this whole thing very professionally.
Yes. And I love that you compared it to a business letter because I think it becomes this serial creation that that somehow are inspired to create, and then you send it off and you wait, however many months it takes, and then if you've done it right, then this magic agent comes to you. But it really is just work. It really is just taking the time to do it. And I think it's a great idea to just think of it as a business letter, because it takes away some of that stigma around it, and it's just a means to an end. It's another step in your journey. And so you just keep working on it, and it's not as personal. If you have, feedback or changes that are needed, it's not affecting it. Like you said, it doesn't reflect on who you are as a person. It just reflects on, what you can do to improve your writing and become better. And I think I've come to the point where if I do get feedback on Query Letter and how it can be improved, I'm so grateful, because you just have a new resource to try and make it better. And I think that's really important. So thank you for sharing that. You've mentioned some things in there that we haven't had on this show, and I think that our listeners are going to be really grateful. We're running a little bit out of time here, but I did want to ask you before we start wrapping up. What are you reading right now? What should we be reading? What you like?
I am reading so many things, but
As one does when you're
I
trying to have a lot of books in the home.
yeah, but I always try and read one crime book and one literary book at the same time.
Mm.
So I am right now reading Earth Spinner by Anuradha Roy, and it's a fantastic book. It's set in India. Another book that I loved recently was One Step Too Far, and this one is out by Lisa
Okay.
Gardner.
Okay.
So that's another one I've been
Mm.
reading. So maybe that could be included in the show notes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I don't think I've read that one, so I'll definitely be checking that out for sure. Bianti, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. It has been so fruitful and helpful to have you on. It's very clear that you have a lot of wisdom and you're willing to share a lot in this community. So, because the show is about community, how can we become more of a part of your community, and what's coming up next for you?
Thank you for asking. And my community is at damyantiwrites.com. That's my website. And that's been there for the last 14 years. So I have a huge number of friends from there. And coming up next is The Blue Bar. It's a literary crime novel. It's set in Mumbai. It's about a woman, a bar dancer, who is in love with a police inspector, and in a complicated relationship. Neither of them know that a predator is watching them both. So it's a
Mm,
serial killer involved.
mm.
So that should be out on the 1st of January, barring another pandemic.
Can we not go there again? Yes,
Yeah.
let's
So,
stay away from that. January
yes.
1st, it's coming up soon. I'm very excited for you, and it sounds very intriguing. And it'll be hard to miss, has beautiful blue cover, and so keep your eyes peeled for that, for sure. I want to just thank you one more time for coming on, and you stick around here with me, but to those who are listening in, my word wizards, right on. Can you see ways to improve your writing process already? Thanks for joining us on this excellent episode of Am I Right? For more information about the podcast, guests, or upcoming episodes, follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Right on, Word Wizards!